Welcome to the Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. Each week we investigate themes of leadership, entrepreneurship, and mindset with some of the greatest minds in real estate. And now, the data scientist of real estate, George Roberts.
Welcome back, Passionate Investing community. Let's start with a quick update on my book, Passionate Living Through Passive Investing. So we are still #1 on the new releases in commercial real estate on Amazon. And I want to thank all of my loyal listeners and viewers who bought a copy and left a review. However, today we are here to talk to Alinatrigub. I have the pleasure of interviewing another great author and founder of SAMO Financial. We'll talk about her great recent release, Your Legacy on Main Street, her recent TEDx talk, and her syndication business. And with that, I want to say welcome to the show, Alina.
George, great to be here again. It's always exciting. Congratulations on your book. Because I released my book recently, I know how much work goes into working on a book and then finally publishing it. So congratulations. It's a huge step, and I'm sure your listeners appreciate reading your book and will greatly benefit from it.
Yes, it is a huge step. And definitely, I want to talk about the process of writing the book, which, as you mentioned, is huge. I learned so much through it. But first, I want to dive into the material here. And I just read it last week. It's a great book. I found a lot of value for experienced investors. So, I understand. Before we go back to talking about your business, we have to talk about your TEDx talk. But I want to make sure that people who are interested now in seeing, just like the lady who bought 4 copies for her children, if they're interested in learning more about you, I understand you have a promotion for our listeners.
Yes, absolutely. If anyone wants to have even a little bit of a glimpse of what my book is about, Amazon, of course, offers a little bit of free reading first. And in addition to that, I would like to offer a free introductory strategy session that will give you a glimpse of what you get a lot more of in my book. In order to schedule that session with me, George and I will select a winner, and they can email me. George will have my contact information.
I'll put that in the notes. So it'll be alina@samofinancial.com, and we'll have that written up in the notes so you can get the proper spelling. Absolutely. Very exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. I was just going to say that my book personally would not be completed without talking about personal development. And there is a chapter on that as well. Personal development and the mindset shift had played a huge role in my case, in my career growth. And I wanted to share that with the audience as well. So I've put a chapter as well to help others to transform that mindset. And keep in mind that mindset shift doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of things, including surrounding yourself with the right people, reading a lot of books on the mindset shift, and also working on shifting the mindset. Just like you do physical exercises to stay physically fit, you need to do mental exercises to help your mindset open up and to gradually go from fixed mindset to growth mindset. And again, that growth doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually. But what you need to realize that as you notice certain things where your mindset is fixed, you gradually changing it from fixed to growth. And to give you just one example of what I mean by that is, instead of saying, let's say, we're getting close to the holidays, people are thinking about weight loss because they're going to gain weight during the holidays. So how can I can't lose 5 pounds. So instead of saying I cannot lose 5 pounds, instead of it, say, what can I do today to lose 5 pounds in 3 months or in 6 months? That small shift in how you phrase the sentence makes a huge difference and helps you to shift your mindset from fixed to grow. I hope this example helps the audience to better understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about mindset shifts.
Yeah, and I love the way that you integrate the body in there, because I'm a firm believer that your mindset, we really just live one life. And so your mind, your body, your relationships, your personal life, all of that impacts you. And give listeners one quick brief from my book is that I say that a lot of times people think, like, I don't have time to do all these fun things in my life. But you know what I find is that if I save a little time each day to do something for personal development or to do something that I just consider to be fun, something that builds my passion for life, guess what? That makes me focus a lot harder. And if you just all work all the time, it's very, very difficult to keep that focus up. I'm a firm believer that your personal life and your professional life definitely impact each other in a very, very huge and profound way. So, yeah, thank you so much for writing that book. I think it's inspiring for me and hopefully inspiring many, many more people like the mother who bought 4 copies for the children. That's beautiful. I love that. You just got to love the impact like that. Well, here's another very impactful thing that you did recently, your TEDx talk. And your topic, I believe, was financial literacy, financial education begins at home. I would love to, if you could expound on that a little bit.
Sure, and thank you, George. Yeah, my title of the TEDx talk, because, of course, it has to be exciting, was Money Talks, Are Your Kids Listening?
Oh,
But the gist of the talk was how to encourage parents to teach their kids financial literacy at home from grade school on. And this came out from personal experience when my daughter, who's older, was in high school, was taking some sort of personal finance course. I asked her what she was learning in school, and she said, well, we'll learn today about how to use ATM. And granted, this was years ago when she was still in high school. She's in college now, but still, I was taken aback by that comment. They teaching you how to use ATM machine. I mean, they couldn't find any better topic. And I started researching and started writing articles about financial literacy. And then that inspired me to take it a step further and bring my message to the masses. And so I started applying for TEDx's to share my message across on a much bigger platform, and finally was accepted by the TEDx Billings in Billings, Montana, and was able to spread my message across with many folks in Billings at this point, and hopefully with many others when the talk goes on a main TED platform in a few months, which essentially talks about what parents can do with their kids at home to teach them financial literacy. And just to give you a sample of it, you don't have to have financial degree to do it. It could be as simple as explaining your kids what money is. And in my talk, I actually give different examples of what the kids can be taught at different ages, starting from age 3 up until age of 18. And it could be things like explaining what money is, explaining what taxes is. And, it's not in my talk, but I'll give you a quick example. If, let's say, you buy an ice cream cone for your kid, well, guess what? If you take immediately 1/3 of that ice cream cone off of top and leave 2/3 for the kid, guess what? That's what the taxes really exemplified. That 1/3 will be the taxes. So guess what? If you don't want to be taxed, or if you want to pay lower taxes, then you need to research what the tax breaks are and what tax breaks are available for your particular profession or for your particular business, so you can take care of it upfront and you can prepare for it before starting a business or before going into specific profession. And then another example that I bring is, and that's something that many parents can do, is playing a board game. Our family has been playing board games for years and we very much enjoy it. And it doesn't have to be Cash Flow 101 by Robert Kiyosaki, which people think, oh, I have to do, debit and credit. No, not necessarily. You can play a simple game of life. And from that game, you can teach your kids not only what the game teaches, which is the fundamentals of financial literacy, but you can also incorporate having a regular casual conversation with your kids about other topics, which could be a lot more stressful when, let's say, the kid came from school and potentially brought a bad grade and you're asking them, they're stressed out, they don't want to talk about that grade. Well, guess what? When you're having a casual conversation while playing the game, it's a lot easier to talk about that bad grade and that stress-free environment. And the third thing that board game is doing to you and your family is it's allowing you to play without using the electronic devices, because that, at least that's the rule that we made for our family. When we play, it's electronic free environment, so that that actually allows us to have that face-to-face conversation without looking at any electronic devices. So tons of benefits by playing board games. And, some of the games that we like is, as I mentioned, Game of Life. We like Monopoly. One of the most favorite board games of our family is actually Rummikub, and I talk about it in the Game of Life. But the game teaches you not only how to be good with numbers, but also the strategy. It's a huge game on strategy, and it's an old one. I think it's like 60 to 80 years old, if not older. So definitely highly recommend it to many listeners.
Yeah, some great games there. Yeah, I've also played Cash Flow once. That was fun. Have you done that?
We have done it, yes. My kids did not enjoy it that much because it's taken longer than other games, but we have it and we've played a few times for sure.
Yeah,
Do
awesome.
you like playing
Well,
Cash Flow 101?
I just once that I played, but it was fun. It was interesting. I get the idea that he's trying to get across that sort of two tracks in life. You run the rat race, and then if you become investor, business owner, you can kind of maybe one day graduate from all of that. And very cool. It's a little bit complicated, more complicated than Monopoly. Pass go, collect $200.
Yep.
But I appreciate what he's trying to do. It's kind of fun. Fun.
For sure, for sure. I actually, while we on Robert Kiyosaki topic, I made my kids read Rich Dad Poor Dad book, the teenage versions when they were younger, when they were in middle school. And I think that book made an impact on them and helped them to realize that there are different paths. Like you said, there is an entrepreneurial path, and then there is a W-2 professional path. And while they may not become entrepreneurs from the get-go, it still leaves points in their minds and allows them to think, what can I do down the road to take that entrepreneurial path and maybe start my own company or start buying real estate. So I also highly recommend folks to encourage their kids to read Rich Dad Poor Dad teenage version if their kids are younger, to learn more about what Robert Kiyosaki is teaching and about his 4 quadrants.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. Now, I always like to ask people on the interview screen, what are your 3 strengths? So you listed the ability to make a positive impact on people, analytical skills, and desire to help others. And I really wanted to talk about the third, the desire to help others, because I see it. I see it through the TEDx talk. You applied until you had the opportunity to get on that big stage and tell people the important lesson that, hey, your children, they're not going to learn the lessons of finance unless you teach them as parents, or they may not. And your book, can you give us some other examples of how this desire to help others has impacted your business?
Absolutely. So when I teach people, whether it's about personal finance or passive real estate investing, whatnot, or explain how real estate funds and syndications work, I always bring examples from the real life, whether it's my own examples, the investments that I made, or the investments that some of my clients made. And I actually offer a few of those examples in my book with all the names changed for privacy reasons. But essentially, it's much easier to explain the situation when it happened in real life, how someone went from not knowing what syndication is and then learned by having private coaching sessions with me, and then by doing additional reading on their own, and then finally taking action and seeing the results of it. I mean, one of the examples is that I talk about in my book is this one couple that I met at the sports practice from one of my kids. So we talked about what each other does, and I mentioned to them that I am doing this passive investing. They got curious, so we met, we spoke, and then I made nothing of it. Then I believe like a year and a half or so later, they reached out to me and they said, well, at this point, we want to have a more serious conversation because we have put some money on the side and we're ready to invest. So it took them that time to digest, process that information, read up more on their own, and then come back and to be ready to take the steps to start building their wealth, but not only on Wall Street, but on Main Street, and start diversifying find outside of the stock market, all because we had that casual conversation at the sports practice. And then another example would be someone who was just watching my journey and reading my posts on LinkedIn. It was this woman, and she reached out to me later on LinkedIn and said how much she benefited just from reading my posts and then later ordering my book and reading my book and just learning from my experience, and now being able to take action and start investing and building wealth for herself and her kids. And I am also a huge fan of Warren Buffett. I consider him my virtual mentor, and I always like to quote some of his expressions. And one of my favorites is, someone is sitting in the shade today because someone else planted a tree long time ago. And I'm a big believer that by sharing my message through my TEDx or through my book or by privately coaching my clients, I am planting all these trees today that will help all these folks to see the results down the road, whether it's building wealth for themselves or their families, or maybe benefiting their communities, which again, I'm a huge fan of. And I spend a lot of time and financial resources to benefit my local community. And I do a ton of volunteering and helping out, either it's locally or at my 2 college alma maters that I went to, by teaching students the career development and personal development knowledge that I have and passing it over to the next generation.
Well, great work paying it forward. I want to make sure we have a little time to go through my lightning round, my favorite 7 questions. I call it the 7. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right. Alina, if you could be known for just one thing, what would it be?
Helping others.
What personal characteristic has been most pivotal to your success?
According to others, it's grit.
What's the greatest lesson in leadership you've learned as an entrepreneur?
Always lead by example. And that's what I teach my own kids. Only do to others what you want to be done to you. So I always do that.
All right, great. Well, here, now it's time for my random question. So let me know when to stop cutting the deck.
Stop.
All right, top question. What's your favorite part of Thanksgiving dinner? And I have to say, I'm lucky. This is totally random, but this is actually very seasonal. We're about to have Thanksgiving in probably a couple weeks from when this airs.
Yeah, George, that's ironic. I actually presented about 5-6 years pre-COVID at another event where I was talking about Thanksgiving, and the portion of the talk was that, well, I came from former Soviet Union, and some of the traditions that we kept is having some of the traditional Russian dishes. So one of the dishes that we have at our Thanksgiving dinner, which is very untraditional for Americans, is pickled herring. And, it does not go well with turkey, but it goes really well before turkey. So if anyone wants to try it, or for those that never tried it, I personally like pickled herring and I recommend it to others. But if you ever guest at my Thanksgiving dinner, and everyone is welcome, we always have pickled herring as a part of that dinner.
I love it. That sounds like a great appetizer, first
It's an
course.
acquired taste, but by all means, making sure everyone
All right.
knows.
So what's a tip or trick that investors can implement in their business today?
Always have an open mindset and continue to learn. I'm a big believer in learning. I learn by talking to other people and by reading other people's books. I am very excited to read your new book, George. I just ordered it right now and looking forward to learning more from you and from others.
Well, perfect dovetail to my next question, because I was going to ask you to name a book that's helped to forge you as a leader, entrepreneur, or investor, and tell us why.
One of my favorite books, and I know a lot of real estate investors always say Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a great book, but one of my favorites is The Richest Man in Babylon. The book is ancient and over 100 years old by George Clason. And what I like about that book is, even though it's that old, It teaches the fundamental principle of investing, which is pay yourself first. If you're an entrepreneur, whether it's side hustle or main business and whatnot, always make sure that you're paying yourself first, because if you don't pay yourself first, guess what? All the money will be spent on something else. But you need to make sure that you're rewarding your efforts, and that entails paying yourself first.
Okay, beautiful. And can you give us a quote to send us out?
Well, that's a big one. I would definitely want to use the quote from my book. Let's see if I can think of a quick quote from my book. Funny enough, that quote is related to paying yourself first. So adopting the habit of paying myself first, I allocated a percentage of my income to savings and investments before covering other expenses. This disciplined approach ensured that my financial future took precedence over short-term desires.
Beautiful. And I want to say, listeners, I love the book. It's full of information, but it's personal. It's from the heart. It's a true story of how people can make it in what I call this greatest of nations on God's green earth. I want to make sure, though, before we wrap, that people do have an opportunity to reach out. What is the best way to reach out to Alina Trigub?
Thank you, George. They can reach me on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or they can email me directly at alina@samofinancial.com. And I'm really grateful for this interview, and thank you so much for inviting me again.
It's my pleasure. One of my favorites recently, I have to say, and for my son out there who is a huge fan of Russian culture, right now I think we have about 2 gallons of compote in the fridge.
Oh my goodness, incredible.
Yes. So we'll have to check into maybe having some pickled herring at Thanksgiving dinner.
Sounds great. Thank you, George.
All right, beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge and experience with our audience.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.